How's it going, YouTube? Welcome back to another episode of Table Zero. I am joined by a special guest, but first, before that, my co-host, the one without the glasses, Fi. How's it going, dude?
I see clearly directly into the camera with both my eyes, nothing obstructing this view. I just decided to wear contacts today. I was like out and about running around, and you know what? I'm like, let's just keep it going for the podcast. Maybe we can switch things up. Maybe I rebrand myself. I'm a changed man individual. Maybe that's what going like X3 at Indy does to you, but I don't know.
And we have a very, very special guest here today that I'm super excited to have on the show. 3-time YCS champ. Fi, without the glasses, can you see the lines? We have Pac here. How's it going, man?
Nah, he's Superman, bro. You know when Superman takes off his glasses?
Yeah.
That's when he's full power. So he's actually he's evolving.
About seeing the lines, I remember you commented on my my second place regional deck profile because I wore your hoodie the whole way through.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was sick.
I was like,
That was sick.
that list. Let's not talk about it. But I got second place somehow. So they gave it to me. So, anyways, moving along.
So today we're going to be covering the aftermath of YCS Indianapolis 2024. That was definitely one to remember. Pac, first of all, again, welcome to the show. Super happy to have you here. How was your Indy experience, just like in general as a tournament?
As a tournament, I don't really like I decided to play branded for YCS Indy, and I was really happy with my deck choice. I think obviously Snake Eyes is the best deck by far, without a doubt. But I just didn't really like the playstyle. I got quite bored of it, and I honestly wanted to just do something a little bit different. So I decided to play Despia. I just really enjoy the deck, honestly, and I was like, honestly, at the moment, I've been really busy with work. I haven't really had much time to play tests. And I could just take Snake Eyes, but that would be too boring. So I wanted to run back because I did take this deck to Raleigh as well to see if I could top a YCS with Despia. But ultimately, I kind of fumbled the bag one of my rounds. And because of the tournament structure, if you go X2 at a certain point, you're pretty much out the tournament regardless of how you finish. So... but I don't blame anything mainly to the tournament structure. It was mainly I did fumble that round, which just made me go X2, and then it just didn't matter. It was round 8, I believe. Really cool opponent though. I had an amazing match with him. Really cool dude, but unfortunately, just like I said, I just fumbled. So it is what it is. Not happy with my result, obviously, but I didn't I wasn't too mad about it after the fact when I really thought about could I have done something different? Yeah, probably. And was it substantial enough to have done well? Yeah, probably. So, yep.
Yeah, and you talk a lot. Yeah, you talk a lot in your videos about actually facing your mistakes and not saying oh, I got sacked or something like that. Just realizing, yeah, I could have played that better. So I think it's something that is a good lesson for everybody at home too. Fi, you were also at the tournament. You were gonna get back to the branded deck, but Fi, you did in fact play a pretty rogue deck, Snake Eyes. How was it?
Yeah. I played. Yeah. I was like, wait, does he know what I was playing? Okay. I was like, okay. I had to make sure. I just had to make sure. Yeah. So I showed up with pure Snake Eyes. I think I wouldn't say the list was pretty. The one thing I was different is I decided to main deck droll for this event. That was just the one thing. I wasn't unhappy with it, but it was mostly that I went X2 decently early. I went X2 by round 6. And it's not that I really made any mistakes. It's mostly I was playing a pretty standard list in terms of engine. I think I bricked game 1 versus a Vanquish Soul player and then got shifted game 3 with no playable cards. So it's that's just the deck. So I went X2 by that point. And my first loss was in round 3. So mostly my losses up to that point, I feel like were uncontrollable. I definitely could have played better even in my wins, but yeah, a same issue with Pac though in terms of the actual tournament structure. I knew once I went X2, I'll play it out. I'll fight to the finish. And I actually did make like day 2 X2, 7-2 day 1, which is not bad. It's actually
That's good.
genuinely my best performance so far in an event. But with 1,800 players in a top 32, that is just so brutal.
Yeah. It's really unfortunate, actually. I think like I don't think there's a good way for them to fix that, to be honest. Like I actually don't even know what the solution is, because I hate like making these complaints without like at least like thinking about, okay, what can we do? And quite frankly, I just don't know what we can. Just don't lose early. So, but I think that's what you describe about Snake Eyes is like the reason why I stopped playing it is because I feel like a lot of your losses are really uncontrollable with Snake Eyes. Like you either brick, like if you actually count the start, like I'll take like for example like Paolo who won the YCS. Huge congrats to him. But if you look at his list, he's played 44 cards, and he added more non-engine, right, to make it 44. Like there's no extra starters you can play. Like besides, unless you decide to main deck Lullaby and play the Mirror, which is what I did for YCS Vegas. But he like opened pretty well for a for a deck list that added more cards to the deck, and there were non-engine cards. So in theory, he should brick more. But I have like friends who, like Sam, for example, like Team Sam. Shout out to my boy. He played. I told him to play 40 cards pure Snake Eye, because I'm like, bro, this shit bricks. Like you really gotta like. I want to play 40. Like I'm not trying to play no games. Like you gotta play 40. You can still play 18 non-engine in 40. And I think you have the highest chance to like not break. I think like majority of your losses is gonna be because you break, or if you open a small engine hand, which means you're passing to one Baylor, one Imperm, one Ash, etc., etc. So, and dude, he like bricked twice. Like I asked him like what happened. Like he was out like a couple rounds in, and I'm like, dude, what happened? It's like, dude, I just bricked. I'm like, how? Meanwhile, I'm seeing people play like. Meanwhile, people are out here playing like Snake Eye Cashtira, 45 cards. They're opening like 3 hand traps, Unicorn, Ash, Witch. I was like, I guess like that is Yu-Gi-Oh sometimes. So, yeah.
That's really unfortunate. I think this was one of the main concerns, and one of the things that we're going to talk about a little bit later. The engine count versus non-engine count of Snake Eye is a double-edged sword because of things like that, where you can pass on a Veiler, but possibly end on 4 hand traps in hand, and that goes back and forth if you're in the mirror. And we saw that happen. I was obviously not at Indy. This was a pretty diversive, I think, YCS or event in general. I think from the tournament viewing experience, a lot of people were like, oh my god, this sucks, seeing like hand trap wars and people passing on nothing. We're going to discuss that. But first of all, before we go into the event, Pac, I want to ask you, so you talked a little bit about your decision to bring Despia to this event. You obviously knew that this was not, quote unquote, the best deck necessarily of the format. However, you did choose to build it and bring it. How do you approach going into a tournament where you probably realize it's going to be a tier 0, probably dominated by Snake Eye, but you choose intentionally to go with a different deck?
Yeah, so like whenever you decide to play a deck that's not the best deck, you always have to look like, okay, well, how do you beat those decks? And so like a lot of my tech choices were designed to literally beat Snake Eyes. I played like 5 or 6 Snake Eyes. I only lost to 1 because I misplayed. But I beat the majority of my Snake Eye opponents, like literally either 2-0 or 2-1 majority of the times, but mostly 2-0, because I would win game 1, because a lot of their like the board they set up loses to like tech cards like Alba Leonidas. Like literally, like there was one play where I activated, I set Albaz, I contact fused Alba Leonidas, punch all over their monsters, main phase, and still in battle phase like high spirits for a Mercurier. Activate Brand Infusion, they ashed it, then I negated their ash, because I have Alba Leonidas on the board, and they're like, bro, what just happened? And I was like, and I'm just like, and so I was like, okay, there are like some advantages playing Brandon to like the Snake Eyes deck that I saw that didn't make it like completely unplayable, right? Like I don't think my deck is like tier 2, tier 3 per se. I think it's like honestly a very strong tier 1 pick. It's just like really hard to play in like 11 rounds. But like a lot of my like practice for the tournament was making sure that like if I play against Snake Eyes, I can consistently beat that deck because that's the deck that I expect to play the most, which I would say for the majority of the time I did. So that's why like I think that if you decide to take a rogue deck, just make sure that like it does have some merits. And I did see like that Despia did have some merits going into the YCS, so I didn't feel like I was that far behind. I actually thought that it was I was actually a little bit more ahead because of the fact that a lot of people didn't really know how to like hand trap the deck. Like a lot of times, like I don't even search Brand Fusion, and I play without it. But my point would think I have it, so they will hold Brand Ash Blossom really like they would hold it forever. Like I remember there's one game I thrust for a fusion deployment, and it made my opponent think I had Brand Fusion, but that fusion deployment got me to an Albaz on the board. Which allowed me to summon Cartesian from hand. I broke the guy's whole board without never activating Brand Fusion, but I accomplished all the steps that would that a Brand Fusion would have done if it did resolve, right? Like putting stuff in the graveyard off Grand Gunal, you know, like stuff like that. So that's what I was like, okay, like there's definitely some like cool mind games you can do with the deck. But yeah, so that's why I didn't feel too bad about it. I thought it was a fine pick overall. Obviously, it's not the best deck, but I also am human. I want to have fun. I want to enjoy what I'm playing at YCSs, and Despia was a deck I really did enjoy.
I want to add to the rogue deck discussion because I actually had a rogue pick that I wanted to play for this event, and that was the Unchained with the Dark Beckoning Beast cards. I thought that deck was pretty interesting, at least into this kind of format. But I couldn't necessarily, like with the Despia deck, I think one of the huge advantages of it is that how complex it is that your opponent doesn't really know what you're doing, like you were talking about, Pac. And I don't think, like, I couldn't say, like, even if I wanted to play Despia for the event, or even if I thought it was the best pick, I couldn't, because I can't play that deck confidently for 11 rounds straight and then into top cut. I just can't do that. That's the problem with the Unchained deck for me. I'm just not the player to pick up that deck with only one Shavara right now and play that deck competently. At this, maybe you have differing opinions on how the Unchained cards play into this current format, but I just couldn't pick that deck because I'm just not the player. And I think that's a really big deal.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point. Like, I do think that, like, regardless of whatever deck you play, you definitely wanted to play to, like, the maximum potential. So if you play a rogue deck, you better be, like, crazy with that deck. You know what I'm saying? Because, like, I think the biggest issue that people run into is that they try to enter a YCS with a rogue deck, and then they end up not performing as well. And they're like, man, dude, Snake Eyes is so unfair, blah, and all this. I'm like, yes, okay, 100%, it definitely is. But if you as a player, like, did you play like your deck to its fullest, like, you know, capabilities, right? And if you did, then you can't really be too mad because you still made that conscious choice to play that deck, right? Because I think, like, if your goal is to, like, win the YCS, you kind of have to, like, sometimes take the, you know, emotion out of, like, picking, like, your deck. You kind of have to, sometimes you have to concede that, you know, you have to play that deck. I think for me, like, I obviously do want to win, but I think that I kind of lost my drive to do well after I been really busy with work. So I was like, you know what, I think I'm gonna take a different approach this time around, where I show up to the YCS and I just want to enjoy my experience. And I knew that I would be miserable playing Snake Eye Mirrors all day. So I think, like, sometimes you have to, like, you know, maybe take a step back and align what your goals are, right? So that's why I wasn't too upset that I was upset, obviously, but I wasn't, like, too mad at myself or, like, too upset that I didn't do as well, because I'm like, at the end of the day, like, I could have done better if I made, like, a better deck choice, right? Because I honestly, looking back at it, I think playing Snake Eyes, like, it was like a no-brainer. Like, the deck is not at this point, like, legitimately tier 0. I think it has more YCS wins than Tier Elements, and Tier Elements was around for way longer. Like, that's just, like, an example of how absurd the card qualities are for, like, these one card combo type decks, right? Like, yeah. So that's kind of, like, my take on, like, the whole, like, you know, rogue deck discussion.
Yeah.
And taking it to an event.
I think when you're taking, especially if you're, like, a rogue player for a while, I think I sort of experienced it in Snake Eyes format, where I was playing branded for a long time, but I did pick up Snake Eye and I won a couple tournaments with it. And I think going into, like, playing Snake Eye and then going back out to playing branded, I think, like, a lot of the strong meta decks today, I think, like, Snake Eye specifically, it does have a lot of crutches where it can actually give you a false sense of confidence that you're actually like, you know, it just has crutches. You fall onto like hand traps, like Pac said. It takes a lot of like, it's not that Snake Eye doesn't require brain power. Obviously, at the higher levels, it does require a lot of skill. But also with Branded, it's so technical. Your deck is full of engine. You need to navigate like every scenario without like, okay, I'm gonna let my opponent like build his board, and then I'm gonna pick it apart without any help from any like external factors like hand traps and stuff. So obviously, it's a lot more taxing, and I think I 100% agree with like, if you're taking like the non-meta pick, and especially if it's rogue, then you need to be sure that there's also, you can play it well, but also that there's an edge that can actually help you win. Discussing the level of tier 0 it currently is, there was a tweet today by Lithium showing that 8 out of the recent 8 YCSs was won by Snake Eyes. I went into the Yugi Wikipedia page, and the Sinful Spoils engine specifically already has 10 YCS wins. Tier Laments, on the other hand, has 7. So you can already see like in the timeline at one point, just like there's Kashtira and then it's over. That was like the death of it. I think like Snake Eyes is probably the strongest that it's ever gonna be. I mean, it's all downhill from here probably. Like there's a month till like nationals, at least in the US. And I think that people kind of came out of this YCS feeling a little bit weird. I know like Pac, it's like fatigue. It could be from work, but it could also be from like, I don't want to be miserable playing Snake Eye Mirrors like all day long.
Yeah,
that's definitely fair, even though that was the like probably the most correct deck choice. How are we feeling like after this YCS? Like what's happening in the time span between now and nationals? Like what do you think is going to happen or change?
I think someone spoke to me at the YCS about an E-ban, and I was like, yo, like they don't really do that often. And if you look at the OCG right now, Fiendsmith Snake Eye has been dominating multiple top cut slots. Like I'm talking about like it's like absolutely just like absurd, and those are like with hits to like engines too. So I think that like until they hit these Snake Eye cards, I think it's still gonna be like quote unquote the best deck, and a lot of these other choices like just fall apart the moment you compare the card quality of what a Snake Eye Ash does, right, to like one Beckoning Beast.
I'm sorry, bro.
Even,
no
it's
offense.
not fair. Like, it's just the card quality is just so crazy. It's just So I think that's kind of like where the disconnect is. I'm kind of curious to see if Konami will do an E-ban before NAWCQ. I don't think so. I think we'll have Snake Eyes for NAWCQ. I think it will, to no one's surprise, still perform. And I mean, what can we do? I mean, I really want the deck to rotate out.
I think they're gonna need to. The comment about Fiendsmith is actually super correct. I've been watching that as well. I think that if the hit to Snake Eye is not severe enough, every single card that you take out, you're gonna put 1 Fiendsmith, 2 Fiendsmith, 3. You're gonna put the spell in, and that's just gonna fill up the slot immediately. And the card, like, if you still have 1 Snake Eye Ash, if you still have 1, it does enough. So the hit is gonna have to be a little bit more severe. Fine thoughts.
100%. Yeah, they really do need to do something with it. Yeah,
it's hard to kill. It's a deck that's really hard to kill.
I mean, you ban Flambers, the deck is pretty shocked. Like I see people saying ban OSS, and they're like, "Well, I'm still gonna be
people don't use that card.
IP, bros." So.
People don't use that card in the combo. It's crazy. It just doesn't make Diabell Star as good, but if you open Snake Eye's Ash,
I don't think they should actually ban that. I like decks that can you can like play around with fire level ones. That actually seems like I don't want to limit deck building. But about the E-ban, or at least like the Nats format, we're talking about Fiendsmith. The big question is, will Konami release the Baby Goddess Link 2? It is, for those who don't know and don't really know much about Fiendsmith, Basically, they have a Link 1 that requires any light fiend monster. And the baby goddess Link 2 is a generic light fiend monster that takes any 2 monsters. It's like Verte Anaconda version 2, if you want to think of it like that. But that is a jump promo over there. It's not part of any particular set. So it's up to Konami on whether they even want to print that card here. That would probably be coming out in Terminal World Battles of Legends. So that is going to be a massive deciding factor on whether we're all going to be playing Fiendsmith engines in every deck you can imagine.
Do you think that the fact that the OCG is playing Fiendsmith is just to fill up the slots that they lost in the recent ban list?
I think it's a combination of 2 things. I think that the Fiendsmith engine is basically the new adventure engine with less bricks. Or Verte, yeah, or you can consider it like Verte 2. Yeah, it's an engine that like can easily be bridged through if you can accumulate a lot of monsters. Similar to how like you just slam an Appaloosa down if your deck swarms the board, then well, if on the way up, like you can easily just make like a Beatrice or make a Caesar just for free pretty much. And it's like really easy to do. And Snake Eyes is one of those decks that can really generate a lot of like bodies and advantage there. So they're easily able to like convert into like the Fiendsmith engine, because like it's not like you can just add like it's because you still need like extra cards at the end of the day. Like you're not gonna just summon 2 monsters and make like the the Fiendsmith cards. You still need to do something else on top of that. And but the Snake Eye cards are so absurd that you're able to like it actually fits really well together. What's really unique is that I think that cards like not Nightmare Unicorn, the Cashier Unicorn is gonna be like way stronger now. If people play, because if you get hand trap, you can rip like the Link 1 so that like it automatically cuts off like the Fiendsmith engine away. So that's like another like really cool consideration I was thinking about. But yeah, I think that it's the new Brave engine. And instead of summoning Griffin, you summon a Caesar or a Beatrice, and those cards are equally as strong, to be quite honest with you, and they break boards, so it's a 2 for 1.
Yeah. I mean, Wave King is one hell of a toxic card. I'll say that.
I did not miss it.
Yeah,
that card is crazy. Yeah,
that is a 1-card end board. Like, I'm just saying. By the way, one Wave King FTKs the whole voiceless voice engine. You negate a ritual spell, you negate Saphira, the game's over. So like, Wave King is not a healthy card. But I think it's all on if they release that. What other stuff is coming out in info? That you think we should
there's a bunch. I mean, I started looking into it already, but there's a bunch, right? So there's Centurion support, there's Memento support, there's Tenpai support.
Oh god, Tenpai.
On the way there, Terminal World will also release a lot of like the Yubel, the new fusion.
Infernoid.
It'll also release Infernoids. There's also Whitewoods out of info, which is kind of neat because Cartesia and Quem are both light spellcasters and tuners, so they work well with the Whitewood engine. So there's Ritual Beasts that should be getting support in Terminal World. Yeah, I made a whole list because I think for me, like as I'm like going to like NAWCQ and for anyone else looking to like do well at like their nationals, is I started testing like pretty much every deck that's gonna be getting support. I think I feel comfortable to like play Snake Eyes if I need to, and that'll be like quite frankly the choice that is my back pocket choice. And this time around, I think from like a NAS perspective, it's once a year. There's what I'm saying, this, and it's a chance to go to like one of the most prestigious tournaments Yu-Gi-Oh has to offer, like Worlds. Like I will play it even if it's boring, like I think sometimes you're gonna have to, like, you have to take that out. Like I'll play Fiendsmith Snake Eyes if I have to, but I think it would be a disservice to myself, and I don't want to ask myself like what ifs if I don't try everything else as well. And it is time consuming, but I guess that's like the difference, right? Like the time that you're willing to put in. Much.
Well, thankfully you have 27 hours in the day, unlike all of us, which only have like 24. So that's a bit of a buff, I suppose.
Yeah.
You mentioned Tenpai, which I wanted to talk about. Tenpai Dragon was one of the most I would say, like we talked about it a couple times here. Nesh was screaming on the podcast, "Fuck people who bought Trident and brought it up to 100."
Yeah.
I think one Tenpai in top 32. I think that the feature matches. I don't like to look at the feature matches and say like, oh, the feature match was bad, so the deck is bad.
Yeah.
Because every branded feature match, except for yours pack, that I've ever seen was like a little bit horrendous. But Tenpai disappointing. Tenpai kind of disappointing, but I think like also like one place in top 32 is pretty disappointing for the deck. I think that
I actually don't think the deck is bad. I think that people actually misplay with that deck nasty, and you make fun of it for being like and really easy deck to play because you would think it's really easy to play, but I think there's actually skill expression in like instances where like you're not able to kill your opponent and you need to play to the next turn. But also like breaking apart your opponent's board with those cards are actually like way harder than you would think, because sometimes you can't kill your opponent, so you have to like make the conscious decision to like simplify the game state. Like Black Rose your opponent min phase 1 and then like set up like seals, like those are decisions that people like have to like kind of like see. I actually tested that deck a lot. I was actually gonna take it to Indy, believe it or not, because I genuinely do think that deck is like absurd. And I literally watched someone. I was sitting next to my boy Deadly B7, Sebastian Todd. He actually topped the YCS. Congrats to him. And he was playing against Tenpai, and this Tenpai player literally like misplayed nasty. I'll tell you how the misplay occurred, but he was like fuming that he got unlucky off his prosperity when I'm like looking at his board because I'm getting deck check at the moment. And he just misplayed, and I'm just like, bro, like you're supposed to OTK your opponent right now, and you're like I think the thing is like people don't understand that like sometimes they're messing up, like they don't even recognize it. So like for them they'll be like, oh dude, like you know, this is like so unfortunate. But I'm like looking at the board set, I'm like, bro, like all you have to do is enter battle phase and activate Kaiman. Like the misplay was that he went normal summon Pydra, he searched the quick play, I think Deadly Chain SP to like banish it, and then he activates the quick play to search Chandra, and then tries to like normal summon again like a second time. All you have to do is enter battle phase, activate the quick play, summon Chandra and battle phase in this game. But that it's something as simple as that, by the way. So
that's a
I'm
me
just
level
like,
misplay. What is this?
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying that like I think that like a lot of people actually did up playing Tenpai at the YCS. Like I actually remember like in the earlier rounds I saw like so many Tenpai. Like I remember like I think like the first 3 rounds my left and right were all Tenpai, and I'm just like, oh, I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, damn, I actually wouldn't mind to play that matchup. But I can see these people like fuming. They're like, dude, this deck is so like toxic. But yeah, I definitely say that like I don't think it's like the best deck by far, but that deck is one of the most punishing decks where like if you brick, you're just dead, right? Like for your opponent, I mean, like for example, if you're playing Snake Eyes and you don't open suboptimal and you pass to 1 Veiler, like no 4 hand traps will save you against Tenpai OTK. It's like really hard, pretty much. That's why like I think that deck is kind of like toxic in that sense. But you'll see that like a lot of people actually like fumble with that deck like nasty. So I think that deck is actually solid. I just think that like I actually think it's harder to play than Snake Eyes, believe it or not, because I think Snake Eyes is like pretty easy. Because like it's like you literally hand trap, then just normal summon the Snake Eye Ash. If your opponent doesn't have anything, they're like dead, right? Like I think it's like pretty like I think it's basically the same as Tenpai, to be quite honest, except Tenpai your deck is like a lot worse, so you have to play like a lot better. So yeah, I don't know, but that's my take on it, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that obviously a kind of a poor showing, but I think also people maybe underestimate the fact that I also tried to play it a few times. Fine, I know you played it a lot, like you know the deck well. Yep. For me it was like, it's like either I kill you or I lose. But there's also like in betweens that people don't realize. Like you don't like even if you open suboptimally and you can stop your opponent a little bit and you can play a bit, you can nuke the board, banish the graveyard, set up seals, set up something on your opponent's turn, you can still play. Fi, what do you think about Tenpai like as someone who really played it?
Personally, like I wouldn't have played the deck at Indy. The one reason is that no one in that room ever wanted to lose the Tenpai Dragon. Every single player, when making a deck, had some dumb plan to beat Tenpai. I think that is one of the limiting factors of that deck, is that where people were deciding their non-engine around like, okay, I'm not gonna try and lose early to Tenpai Dragon, so I'm gonna play like people like myself included, started cutting Nib from their main deck, which is a bit weird. Like if you're trying to win the Snake Eyes Mirror, Nib is by far in a way a better card, but a lot of people just kind of said, no, I don't want to lose to this deck. Everyone's probably playing a rank 1 somewhere in their list. It's a deck that just commands so much respect, because like if you're a better player, you don't want to lose. You don't want to lose in silly ways. You don't want to lose in uncontrollable ways, deck building wise. So that's why I think a lot of people were just prepared for this, compared to where on the regional level, I think Tenpai Dragon does amazing, because the average player isn't prepared for this. But when you play 11 rounds, you're going to run into too many players, too many situations.
Yeah.
Also, Tenpai bricks, bro. Sometimes it doesn't.
Yes. It just bricks.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to add in terms of like playing the deck as well, I echo the same sentiment that people just misplay with the deck. They don't prioritize. I think I'm just gonna give the biggest tip to Tenpai players. If you open or find a way to Red Dragon and it resolves, you probably win. If you get Red Dragon on the board, it is all of a sudden very difficult, but I see people not prioritizing that. They're going field spell search Hydra instead of field spell search Shundra, and they're playing into their opponent waiting to Ash a Sangan Kaiman, right? So for example,
there's like other plays too where like you could make the Synchro 10 in main phase 1.
Main phase 1,
the field spell, then enter battle phase, then activate the Kaiman, and
GG. And things like that. That's why I was playing Crow in my side deck, by the way, because I didn't want that to happen to me. Things like that. But yeah, there's a lot of like plays where you're just like making Meteor Burst, same deal. But like being able to think about what your opponent has, and you could play the deck to deadly efficiency. So anyways, Tenpai book closed.
Tenpai book closed. It's not the last we've seen of it. More support coming in Infinite Forbidden, so that's going to be interesting to see.
It's getting a popular, I believe, and it's getting like the turn skip drop, right?
Yeah. And and Gimmick Puppet are also getting a Sangan summoning field spell that makes everything unaffected. That's going to be hard to Gimmick Puppet people with that.
Those Gimmick Puppet cards have never been put to good use.
Listen, I've been playing Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. I've been playing puppets for a while now. I'm very versed with the puppets, but I just play one. So the winner of this YCS was Paolo, PRRJ. Shout out to him. Awesome seeing the 2 last feature matches. I think he was in both of them. One against Cam, one against LeBlanc. It was honestly, I came into the tournament kind of conflicted on how I felt about like watching Snake Eye for a while. I didn't realize it's going to be that much. I thought it's going to be a little bit, more of a split. I think people were a little bit surprised of like, because I think the national scene that's been going on for a while, it's like smaller countries, Europe, South America, stuff like that. It was a little bit more evenly spread. Snake Eye obviously won a lot of them, but you saw a lot of Melodious. You saw a lot of Tenpai in a lot of them. Some branded making it into the top. But so like the picture was a little bit more even, but then like Indy, it's like boom, 22 Snake Eye decks in top 32. It was a little bit surprising. So I came in, I was like, how interested am I to see like Snake Eye mirrors and stuff like that? I think when it came down to like top 4 and finals, it was really a pleasure to see like, the Cam and Paolo's feature was, I didn't realize how much skill expression there is when it always comes down to like, they always also came down to like simplified game states a lot because of hand trap wars. Just navigating that was super interesting. Fi, I know you wanted to talk about Paolo a little bit, so the stage is yours.
Yeah, I mean, first things first, to talk about the simplified game state portion. I think that honestly is some of the coolest Yu-Gi-Oh to watch, because you can almost like try to see the numbers be crunched and try to find the perfect line in a very simplified game state. So I think those are like some of the coolest parts about Yu-Gi-Oh. And where like you're trying to just eke out the smallest of advantages. But about Paulo, as a player, I don't think many people in the community know him. They obviously hear of him, but I think Pac, you're someone who's a bit, more in the top player space. How would you describe Paulo like as a player?
I think he likes to take his time. Like, he really wants to make sure he doesn't like mess up. And I've noticed that like and I actually played against him a couple times too. Like he really like thinks through his plays. It almost like makes me think about like I'm like, what are you thinking about? Like I'm actually I just want to know sometimes. Like
you
what's
play
going through your
fast.
brain?
You play relatively fast,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I typically like play a lot faster because like once I like because it's just repetition for me. Like I like don't want to like doubt myself. Obviously, like both scenarios have their merits. But yeah, like I think that and I think there's like a level like I think like that's like really neat because I feel like when he plays in person, I feel like he's almost playing DB. But it's like in person. Like does that make sense? I feel like he's behind a computer screen, controlling his body to like move the cards around. and that's cool. Look, that's cool. Yeah. So I always like watching him play because like he's very like analytical. But yeah, that's just like I feel like that's just like I guess my perception of Paulo. Yeah.
And in terms of like, okay, so I think his deck list for like most people, by the way, I completely agree with you. Like, I was gonna play Kashtira Snake for this event. I was like playing it up until maybe 2 days beforehand, where I'm like, dog, I'm playing 43 cards. What am I doing here? I'm not drawing Snake Eye Ash. So I went back down to 40.
Should have went up to 44.
What do you think about like, even in the 44, like, yes, he's accepting the fact that like, hey, I'm just gonna draw better this tournament, I guess. Well, what do you think about like Paulo's deck building, like his notoriety for playing hand traps, the Mortar from Brazil?
Yeah, he's always been like the type of person to also play like a lot of hand traps. Like if you look at a lot of his list, like he would play hand traps in 2 elements. Like so like if you play Brand, he probably puts 12 hand traps in there too. But I like it makes sense. I think Yu-Gi-Oh has gotten to a point where you genuinely just don't want your opponent to like pop off. But I actually see it as the opposite. I just think that Appaloosa is like kind of toxic, but I think that for the most part, a lot of people's boards right now, because there's not a lot of Omni Negates, like it makes room for a lot of like really crazy cards like Evenly Match and all that good stuff. Like I like break my opponent's boards because I think it's like a lot more interesting. But I see where he's coming from because I think from the perspective of like of like him being a top player, he's probably looking at it as like, look, he probably thinks he plays better than his opponents, and so he wants interaction on his opponent's turn to make sure that if his opponent messes up combo lines or anything along those lines, he has the ability to interact and punish that, right? And that's why hand traps are like really broken, because they give you a chance to capitalize on your opponent's mistakes or not let your opponent play at all, in which case there isn't really much that they can do. But and that's kind of like, yeah, that's just kind of like his style. Like he's always done this. I think every deck he's played has literally, bro, like actually like 15, 18 hand traps. It's actually just been a trend. But yeah, so
I didn't know that about him, actually. Is that a thing?
Yeah, he's the Mortar from Brazil, bro.
Wait, what is the Mortar from Brazil? I saw it in the deck profile. I was like, what is the meme?
So basically the meme is that like Paulo was basically the guy who like made Mourner popular because he would put Mourner in his deck when Mourner was not a card people even thought about. And I think this was like in Synchro Eldritch format, or maybe even so like that's like 2021, I think, or maybe 2022. Like he would put Mourner in his deck because back then there was like this hand trap Eldritch deck that went around when Helki Firebrax was still in the game, where you hand trap your opponent a lot, and if you get to make Helk, because all the hand traps are tuners, you can normal summon them. You get to do like a crazy combo. And people were playing every hand trap under the sun that could stop Helk, and Mourner was one of those hand traps. So so like that's kind of like the meme Mourner from Brazil, because he's like the guy that like kind of like popularized Mourner as a non-engine slot or non-engine card.
That's crazy. Okay, so we're close to ending today's episode, but Pac, it's not every day that we have a guest. I do want to hear from you a little bit. I think a lot of people, including myself, we're still like mid-national season. It's funny that always like the NAWCQ is like the last, right? I'm not sure if it's like the dead last, but it's so late in the season.
Yeah, it's very late. I think we're technically the second. So like the first one is SAWCQ and CAWCQ. So there's Central and South America coming up. And then there's NAWCQ in July, and then it's EUWCQ. And that's Euros. And I think that should be it. And then we'll have a world's representative by by August 1st, I think. We'll know everyone.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but we're like third this time. But we're the first.
July 19th.
I think we're going to be the first. July 19th. We're going to be the first to play with info.
Because it's the same day.
It's the same day. So a lot of people are going to be looking to us. Yeah, like I think I met Susie and at Indy because he was there as well. And he was like, bro, we're going to copy all your homework. I'm like, hey, man, I don't blame you. like you guys got a week after because like basically we're going to be setting the meta for Europe. So they're gonna be looking to us to see what we're doing, and of course, they're gonna have a week to then find an edge on top of that, right? So that's kind of like the what cuts people from different cloths, I guess. Like who can come up with that edge after seeing the results of NAWCQ, and that's gonna be interesting. Or honestly, some people will just copy all the decks and we'll have a replication of what happened in WCQ, but who knows? There's always like slight deviations between like I think countries and stuff like on what people play, to be honest. But yeah.
I do like that they do that. They started doing that a lot now. I think past couple of years, where I don't remember if it was like that before because I wasn't playing for a long time. But having like a big event, I think it was YCS Bologna was the first event for Fire Kings. It was like the day of release or like the day after release. Yeah. It was crazy, and now we have Infinite Forbidden coming out on July 19th, and NAWCQ, Austin, Texas this year. That's gonna be it's gonna be kind of hype, and World in Seattle, which is also like, you guys don't have to travel far. So back to my original question: national season. My nationals is next week Thursday, and we're like mid-season. We've had a few already. What advice would you give players listening to this podcast on preparing for such an event? I know it's like a pretty generic question, but it's like for most people who aren't going to fly to like the Continental Championship, this is like the last big event of the year that kind of counts. So it's kind of like big for a lot of people.
Yeah. In terms of preparation, I think what I usually do is I kind of like lay out all my options. I just decide, okay, these are the decks that I'm gonna enter with. Like, so give yourself a list, right? Like for me, when I was looking for indie, I was like, okay, I'm either gonna play Despia or Tenpai. And I use like, since you guys have a week left, I would use that last week to like probably in like 3 days, just lock in a deck. Like you can't really, you know what I'm saying? Like don't do that last minute stuff. Just be like, okay, 3 days before, I'm gonna lock in a deck. And after you lock in the deck, just work on figuring out what non-engine you want to play. Because I think that you should probably have your main engine cards pretty much solved and figure out at this point. Like you probably like, if you have to decide between a couple decks, you probably know already like, okay, these are the engine cards I want for sure. And then afterwards, like kind of like figuring out, okay, like what are decks that I'm expecting to play against? Maybe for your area, for your region, or for your tournament, you're expecting like XYZ decks. You're expecting like, like India, I expected a lot of Snake Eyes. Like I main deck Dark Ruler No More. So that card is really good. Into the matchup. So like if you can like figure out like, okay, what matchups you're expecting to play against and have cards for it, then I think you should be usually set. And I think afterwards it's just like just have fun, to be honest, because like after you do all the work, there's really and the tournament's about to start, there's really not much else you can do than just play, right? So that's why like after I submit my deck list, that's when I'm like the chillest. I'm like, dude, we're in, you know what I'm saying? Let's ball.
Just let me play.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I would say. Just decide what deck you're gonna play. That's 100% lock in. Don't switch. Don't switch up last minute. And then really take the time to think about your non-engine. I think that's like probably the deciding factor in Yu-Gi-Oh nowadays, right?
Yeah.
It's just you play more game sided than not, so your side deck, your non-engine slots are probably the most important parts of the game at the moment.
Yeah.
Before we're like, we try to keep this show like within an hour. Maybe we'll consider like expanding on like the amount of time, because we don't want like shows to drag on. We want the energy to stay fresh. So one thing I want to do before we hit the bell is I want to tell you guys, at YCS Indianapolis, I had the stupidest game of Yu-Gi-Oh I've ever played. That ever happened to me. All right. So let's set the scene here. So this is round 8. I'm currently X2. So I kind of know in the back of my head, like, I'm probably not going to make it. I had 2 uncontrollable losses, and that's what you get for playing Snake Eyes. Should have given my deck with a little bit more agency, I think. But
should have played Brandon.
I'm entering into round 8, and I sit across from my opponent. We say hi, we exchange. Honestly, one of the best opponents I played at the event. I played against some very mean people, but this guy was like really nice. He's really chill. And it's even better when they don't know who I am, because I feel like it's pretty genuine. But anyways, so I sit across from him, and I win the roll. I go first, and I just go normal summon Snake Eye Ash, and there's no response. I'm like, holy cow, that resolved. It's the first time it resolved all day. And I just start comboing, and midway through I ask him, like, how many cards do you have in your main deck? And he says 40. So I'm like, 40 cards. He's X2. We're in round 8. I have not been hand trapped yet. I need to make a rank 1. All right, I'm not gonna get blown out by Tenpai Dragonplane Breakers. Basically, like, this guy has to be on Breakers if that's the case. If I have not been hand trapped up to this point, I feel like there's just a problem. So I go Temple, place Oak, and I do the combo where I end on Flamberge IP and I end on a Fuko. And I pass turn. He goes draw for turn. His first action is summoning Santa Claus over my Fuko. And I'm like, oh my god, I just lost. I'm lost. It's over. Like,
but you called it.
Normal summon Chundra, it's over. And then get this. He special summons Alpha, the Master of Beasts, next as a second play.
Shit.
I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, wait. What's happening here? Like, and then I'm like panicking. Like, what am I playing against? His next action, you will not guess the next card he activates.
Chimera Fusion.
He activates Cornfield Codal.
Let's
He goes
go!
Cornfield Codal.
He took the bait.
The Search Gazelle, and I'm like, what am I playing against?
Listen.
That's crazy. That's actually crazy.
That might-
Wait, Santa
like-
Claus is a fiend, right?
Yeah, Santa Claus is the Fiend. Alpha, the Master of Beasts, is obviously
the
a beast. So
That might be my fault. That might be my fault.
So, he searches Gazelle. He normal Gazelle. I think I just flip Imperm on it. Because like at that point, he's trying to get to Berfomet through some other ways. My hand's pretty strong. I actually thought he was Tenpai so much that I actually kept an Imperm in my hand, because I thought I set Imperm set cross out. And I just said, like, if he's gonna just blast my board, because I have Fuko, why do I need to, do anything? I just kept an Imperm in my hand because I don't want to lose that to Lightning Storm. So, but he starts going off. He does his thing. I make a cool play where I bait out his Codal, and then I didn't Imperm the Gazelle. I Impermed his Guardian Chimera, where I baited out his Codal with Princess, and then Impermed his Guardian Chimera in the same chain. And then, or Valor, I forget. So I end up winning that game. I think I crossed out his talents, and then I win that game. Going into game 2, he gets to start. You guys want to guess what his first action is in game 2? He activates Ostinato. He activates Ostinato as his first action. And I'm like, oh my god, what is happening?
Yeah, actually that list, yeah. That was crazy.
I think I was so shook. I end up winning.
Based Chimera.
I think I just I'm pretty sure I hand trapped. I just like Mortared Baka or something like that, and then called it there. He wasn't playing like Gravity Control or anything of that. But sorry, I was like, what happened afterwards? I was like, that was the most. I just did. not that I like wasn't prepared because I just know what these cards do already. But I was just like, I wasn't ready for summon Santa Claus over my Fuko. I thought I lost.
Yeah.
Santa Claus in Chimera is kind of wild. But Alpha,
I was just funny.
I'm definitely taking credit for that.
Afterwards. We were just talking afterwards, and I was just like, holy! That was the most insane game of my life.
That was a good story. I love a Chimera story. Before we wrap it up, Pack, question. This is gonna be on my channel, so I think the viewers are gonna wanna know. What is the rarity situation in your branded deck at the moment?
Oh, what do you mean? I have it all maxed out.
You have everything?
Max.
You're done?
Yeah, maxed out, misprinted.
Misprinted.
Yo,
I saw the misprints and I was like talking to my friends like, shit, I got one upped by Pack. I gotta get back up on the horse. I need to find some misprints. And they were telling me, no, don't start doing that. Don't start doing that.
Bro,
there we go.
Got this in today.
There we go. You are wild.
I love this deck. That deck is so sick. I did see your video though. I saw that video you made with the $4,000 Despia. That was sick. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Actually, that deck is mad expensive. Yeah.
that is in fact the price. It wasn't even a clickbait. It was a little bit more than that even. Yeah. With the allures now, it gets pretty expensive.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's gonna be it for us for today. Next up, we're probably gonna be doing a show maybe in a couple weeks or maybe a little bit before Nationals. Pack, tell the people at home where they can find you. I'm gonna put all the links in the description as well.
Yeah, sure. You can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/PackTCG, or just Pack on YouTube. You have to type in Pack Yu-Gi-Oh though, or else something else shows up. So yeah,
all right, guys. Make sure to search for Pack, then Pack Yu-Gi-Oh, just to make sure you have everything figured out. Closing words.
Trying to normal summon Decatronics format. Let's go.
Oof.
I love that.
Oof. That's
thank you for that. But it ain't gonna be all that. But I hope just bring back grass, Konami. We can do it.
Yeah, why not, man? Ban Flambridge, bring back grass to 1. Thank you so much for watching or listening back home. Pack, again, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure and an honor to have you here. It was really, really fun. We will catch you guys in the next time. Peace out.
Peace.